Hello, and welcome to another virtual field trip. Today we're doing part 2 of the Eagle River Nature Center. The Nature Center is located just 30 minutes north of Anchorage. As with any hike, you should check in at the visitor center if there is one. If not, you should always let somebody know at home where you're going and what time you expect to be back, just in case there's any kind of emergency. In part 1 of this video, we walked out to the main outlook on the Rodak Trail. Today, we're going to finish that hike by coming back. The total hike, if you do both videos, would be 3/4 of a mile. Just like in part 1, our hike, when you're walking the trail, you're either going to do level 1, which is lunges, or level 2, which is jump lunges. You can switch at any time. And if these are too hard for you or you're getting tired, you could just walk in place. Alright, here are exercise targets. They're the same as part 1, so if you remember them from doing part 1, you're ahead of the game. But the first target we have is a bench. If you see a bench, you're going to do squats. The next target you see, or the next target, will be animals, and that's toe touches on the ground, alternating right hand. Next one is signs. If you see a sign, you need to do jumping jacks. And then we have flowers. If you see a flower, you're going to drop down and do crunches. And lastly, if you see a really cool tree, which there's lots of them out there, you're going to do alternating Superman. If you remember from the last time, we were out at the outlook looking at the beautiful scenery and the mountains. Also got to see a moose that was feeding in the marsh. We're going to start off a little differently on this video. Instead of hiking, we saw an animal, so we need to do toe touches. So drop down, start your toe touches. Right hand to left foot, left hand to right foot. While you're doing your toe touches, let's talk about seeing animals in the wild. It's never a good idea to approach them. To watch from a distance and be ready to back away if needed. That you should never throw or yell or scream at anything unless you feel like they're going to charge you. We should never ever try to feed a wild animal. Do you know in many cases it's against the law to try to feed a wild animal? People from around the world pay big money to go to zoos and see what we get to see for free, which makes us kind of like Alaska zookeepers, and make sure that when we have family members come up to visit, we let them know these rules about taking care of our animals and being safe around them in the wild. Great job with those toe touches. Now it's time for us to get going on our hike. Remember, level 1 or level 2. Alright, we've come to a sign. That means we have to do jumping jacks. Get ready to do your jumping jacks. Now I'm going to read this sign, the change of values. It's all about what actually happens in the wild with our forest. The importance of an organism does not diminish with its death. Dead trees, their wood, softened by insects, and rot, provide nesting places for many kinds of birds. Fungal and bacterial decomposers decay dead plants and animal material, returning nutrients to the soil. Scavengers like wolverines, magpies, and maggots serve a similar function, recycling carrion back into the web of life. Nothing is wasted in nature. The end of life is the beginning of another. You see that all over the forest with the dead trees and such. Great job on those jumping jacks. All right, it's time to get hiking again. We have another sign, which I know we've done a lot of signs, but this is a learning hike, so there is a lot of signs to read. This sign's important though. If we don't read it and take the time to understand what it's saying, we might not make it back to where we left. The Nature Center has lots of different hikes, and if we're not careful and take the time to read our signs and find which way the visitor center is, we could wind up going on a 10-mile hike instead of the 3/4-mile hike we wanted to go on. It's also really important to know which hike we're on. We're on the Rodak, not the Abbott Loop, and so we need to make sure we're following the arrow that points to the Rodak Trail and back to the visitor center, because that's where we're heading now. The nature preserve is really good about having a map at many different places on the trail. But if you're not going to the nature center and out and hike in the wilderness, it's always a really good thing to bring a map, just in case your electronics aren't working and you'll be able to find your way back. All right, great job. We're done with our jumping jacks. Now we're going to start hiking again. We just found a really cool tree. It's actually big enough and hollowed out that we can crawl inside of it. That means we need to be doing some alternate Superman. While you're doing your exercises, we're going to look inside this tree. Like I said, it's really cool. It's hollow enough that I can even get inside and be totally inside this tree. Question is, do you think this tree is dead or alive? I'm pretty sure the tree is still alive. It looks like it from the outside, and most of the nutrients travel up the bark, not the inside. Now as we walked in, I noticed something on the ground. It was definitely a different color than nature. It was a painted rock, and on the back it says, AK Valley Rocks, hide or keep. If you find a rock like this, people have painted them, and you can take it home and keep it, or you could go put it somewhere else. I left it there for somebody to find. Alright, we're done with our alternating Superman. So, now it's time to get hiking again. Alright, here's a bench. But instead of doing exercises, we're going to use this as a rest time.
Hey there, welcome to Life Noggin. What if you only slept a couple of hours every night? Is sleep really that important to your health and well-being? Let's find out together, and then maybe we'll take a well-earned nap. Well, it looks like some people might only really need a few hours of sleep. Called short sleepers, or the sleepless elite, these individuals might make up about 1% of our society and are the early birds and night owls of the world, only needing a few hours a night with the Sandman, maybe even just one. However, some scientists disagree on if these individuals are still at their best health at only a few hours of sleep a night. And even if they are, and this is true, keep in mind that there are only a very small percent of the population. Most of us need quite a few more hours of sleep a night than that. But just how much? The National Sleep Foundation recommends that adults get between 7 to 9 hours of sleep and teenagers get around 8 to 10. This amount increases the younger a person is, with newborn babies needing 14 to 17 hours of sleep for optimal health. And for
Alright, our rest is over. Time to get hiking again. off in the distance, I see something. Something out there in the river. What is it? What could it be? It's a bear. Once again, we're a long ways off. I'm using my binoculars to see it here so we can watch it play in the river for a second. If it was to get any closer to us, we might want to start making some noise. But he's having a fun just playing in the river. Oh, and it's got a baby cub. That way we definitely want to stay away from them. But they're taking off the other way. All right, now it's time for us to do our toe touches. Ready? Let's go.
Optimal health. And for all my teenage friends who find it hard to stay awake in class, the sleep experts at the National Sleep Foundation have your back. They say your biological internal clocks help keep you awake later in the evening, making it so that you want to stay asleep during those early morning classes. Phew, I thought it was just me. It seems like getting the right amount of sleep is important to staying healthy for most people. With a study that looked at older adults, researchers found that sleeping less than 6 hours or more than 10 hours a night was associated with a higher likelihood of healthcare use. Shorter sleep durations were linked with greater odds of emergency department visits, and longer sleep durations linked up with greater odds of overnight hospital stay. Maybe the saying should be the right amount of sleep a day can keep the doctor away. Yeah, let's make it that, because I'm not really a big fan of apples.
Wow, sleep is really important. Good job. All right, let's get going again. Get ready to hike. All right, we've come across another bench. Time to start some squats again and learn a little bit more about sleep.
Apples. Disrupting your sleep seems to have negative consequences on your health as well. Based on current studies, sleep disruption has been reported to increase the risk of incident dementia. One such study examined 737 older adults and found that greater amounts of sleep fragmentation was associated with an increase in cognitive decline. Sleeping less also seems to have a correlation with Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common form of dementia. In a 2017 review article published by the Oxford University Press, it's been hypothesized that humans' natural selection for shorter sleep cycles has compromised the efficiency of the physiological mechanisms that protect us against Alzheimer's disease during sleep. They believe this is because humans sleep less than other primates but have a much higher prevalence of Alzheimer's disease pathology. This article was very recent, but further research to shed more light on this could potentially go a long way with protecting people from Alzheimer's disease. Long story short, you should probably get some sleep, because your body depends on it. So what have you found to be the best amount?
So sleep is really important. Make sure you get plenty every night. All right, time to get going again. Let's start hiking. All right, now we're going to take a rest break and learn a little bit more about sweat. If you have water, drink it, and focus on your breathing.
Hey there! Welcome to Life Noggin. Sweat gets a bad rap. It smells, it's sticky, some people think it's just generally disgusting. But you humans are programmed to sweat. It's an important bodily function that keeps you alive and healthy. But what would happen if you never sweat? The main purpose of sweating is to cool down the body when it starts to heat up. The millions of sweat glands in your body produce as much as 14 liters of liquid a day. When this sweat is secreted through your pores and evaporated into the air, your body begins to cool down and your overall body temperature returns to normal. So if you didn't have the ability to sweat, you'd have a really difficult time cooling yourself off. You'd be hot and flushed a lot of the time, and ice baths would probably become your best friend, which sounds like a horrible best friend. Typically, when someone gets too...
Rest break is over. Get ready to start hiking again. Alright, we saw some really cool flowers there. Now it's time to do some crunches.
Horrible best friend. Typically, when someone gets too hot, their hypothalamus sends a message to their sweat glands to begin the cooling process. But some people literally cannot sweat, and therefore can't regulate their body temperature properly. This condition is called anhidrosis, and causes muscle cramps, physical weakness, dizziness, and more serious problems like heat exhaustion and heat strokes. For people with the disorder, even being outside when it's 27 degrees Celsius can be deadly. If you never sweat, you need to be super careful in warm climates, when exercising, at the beach, even just in your day-to-day life to make sure you don't overheat. You'd also need to be super conscious of your overall health if you didn't sweat. If you got sick and had a fever, you wouldn't be able to just sweat it out to bring your body temperature back to normal. On the plus side, if you didn't sweat, you'd probably smell nice, which I guess is good. What do I smell like? Oh, I don't have a nose. Sweat is made of...
See, sweat is really important. Alright, let's start to sweat a little bit more by beginning our hike again. Alright, we found another bench. That means we've got to do some more crunches. Let's get going.
Sweat is made of water, sodium, urea, ammonia, and a few other things. But sweat itself doesn't actually smell. There are two types of sweat glands, apocrine and eccrine. When sweat from the apocrine glands is mixed with bacteria that lives in your armpits and groin, that's when the smell begins. Sweat from the eccrine glands doesn't interact with bacteria, so it doesn't smell. No interaction of sweat and bacteria means no BO. This inability to sweat can be caused by a number of things like skin conditions, certain diseases like Parkinson's or alcoholism, genetics, and medications. To determine whether you have this condition, doctors may perform a pretty weird test called a thermoregulatory sweat test. They cover you in a special powder that changes colors in places you sweat, and then put you in a chamber to increase your body temperature and analyze how your body perspires. Which honestly sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie if you ask me. Treatment.
Wow, that was pretty cool. Alright, time to get hiking again. We're almost done. take a second to cool down. Pick one of these stretches and let's do it for 10 seconds.